Sokolov should be at the abandoned factory to the north, so head in that direction. Snake, intelligence indicates that that area is outside the enemy's cordon, so you shouldn't have any unexpected encounters with enemy patrols. I think it will be a good idea to take this time to get accustomed to using your camouflage, hunting for food, and navigating the survival viewer. If you have any questions about camouflage or CQC, ask the boss. The boss's frequency is 141.80. Paramedic is the medical correspondent for this mission. Ask her about hunting for food and medical treatment. Also, she has documents detailing flora and fauna in the operation locale. Contact her if you need detailed information on any of the plants and animals in your area. Paramedic's frequency is 145.73.
The gauge below your life gauge is your stamina gauge.
Camouflage is an indispensable tool when you're sneaking through the jungle. To use camouflage, first press the Start button to go to the Survival viewer. Then select Camouflage and press the Enter button. Select Uniform to select Battle Fatigues, and Face to select Face Paint. Choose battle fatigues that match the surrounding environment. The most effective camouflage is attained by selecting fatigues that blend in with the environment. Camouflage patterns that stand out in your surroundings will attract attention.
Saving the game, Snake? Snake, do you know the creature from the Black Lagoon?
Nope, never heard of it.
These scientists are investigating a place deep in the Amazon called the Black Lagoon, and they get picked off one after the other by this fishman thing. And there was this scene when the heroine is going for a swim, and the creature sneaks up on her from underwater. Oh, I thought my heart was going to stop. I mean, of course, the 3D effects in It Came from Outer Space were a lot more intense, but...
It wouldn't be referring to you coming from outer space, would it?
How rude! Why do you say that?
Because no one on Earth could be as charming as you.
Fine. I'll just get to the point, Snake. Be careful of what's around you when you're in the water. Just imagining you swimming in those jungle rivers makes me think of you being attacked by a fishman.
I appreciate the concern.
Fishmen aren't the only things that'll attack you in the water. Really be careful out there.
Okay.
And don't be attacking any pretty girls going for a swim, either.
Are you calling me a fishman?
You started it.
Major, I've spotted 2 enemy soldiers.
They're probably KGB troops sent to guard Sokolov.
AK-47s and grenades.
Snake, your presence in Soviet territory is already a violation of international law. We can't let the Kremlin find out that the CIA and the American government are involved. Contact with the enemy is strictly prohibited. Don't engage them in battle either. This is a stealth mission. Got that?
The Major is right. The point of this mission is to sneak through the jungle without being seen. The success of the mission depends on how well you use your camouflage. Change your camouflage by selecting Camouflage from the Survival Viewer. The Uniform option lets you pick your uniform, while the Face option lets you change your face paint. Choosing camouflage that blends in with your surroundings will help you conceal yourself more effectively. Also, don't forget that anything that moves will stand out in the jungle. If you just stand up and run around like an idiot, you're bound to be spotted. But if you crawl instead, you should be able to sneak by without being noticed. You can see how effective your camouflage is by looking at the Camo Index. The Camo Index shows how well your current camouflage blends in with the surrounding area. The higher the value, the harder you are to spot, and vice versa. The key is to make yourself one with nature. Keep that in mind as you go along, okay?
Snake, do you see any tufts of grass?
Yeah,
What kind of grass?
just ordinary grass. Nothing special.
You should check it anyhow.
It's pretty thick grass, about waist high.
If you crawl into the grass, you can advance undercover. When you do, the camera automatically switches to intrusion view. If you want to stand up again, press and hold the crawl button once more. If you press the crawl button briefly, you'll crouch in that spot. This allows you to observe things without blowing your cover. Got it?
Yeah, but
But what?
was that the only reason?
What do you mean?
You had me check it just so you could tell me that?
That's right. Pretty useful, huh?
Right.
Shall we carry on?
By all means.
Even when hidden in grass, if you make a noise, your enemies will locate you. When enemies are nearby, move with slight movements of the left stick. That way, you can proceed with minimal disturbance.
Minnesota, by the way, the town my husband grew up in, and turned it into a state champion. And then he ran for Congress in a red district that only 2 Democrats held in 100 years. So this is a guy, when I think about Michelle Obama's words last night, where she talked about, you know, not everyone gets generational wealth. Not everyone is graced by that and can go bankrupt over and over again. This is a guy from incredibly humble roots in rural Nebraska who then went on to serve his country in many, many different ways. So I think you're going to hear that story of his life. And just from a Minnesota perspective, it was my mother-in-law that brought over
My policy, our policy is clear. We are continuing to hit Hezbollah with full force, and we will not stop until we achieve all of our goals. First and foremost, returning the residents of the north safely to their homes.
And indeed, today, Israel struck Beirut and said it killed the head of Hezbollah's drone unit. Israel also released video of troops practicing for an invasion of Lebanon. Now, we asked John Kirby, the National Security Council spokesman, whether Netanyahu has backtracked from his support, and he reiterated that Israel, quote, was fully informed and aware of every word of the ceasefire proposal before they released it, and the U.S. would not have released it unless they understood that Israel supported it. So Kirby did not say whether Netanyahu had backtracked, but we obviously have a very different public and private message from Netanyahu, and that is nothing new for Netanyahu, says Dan Byman of the Center for Strategic and International Studies.
Netanyahu has a history of trying to play both sides on this, where he will at times appear to make concessions to U.S. officials, but then backtrack in the face of domestic politics. Some of what the U.S. is looking for was relatively vague. Would people agree in principle to X? But it requires both sides to make concessions, and Netanyahu may be reluctant to publicly agree to anything until he knows significant Hezbollah concessions are in the bag.
And Namna, it's just not clear whether Hezbollah is willing to make the concession the U.S. is demanding, U.S. and Israel moving back from the Israeli border.
Nick, what should we understand about Netanyahu's position here? What kind of pressures is he under?
Intense pressures both from the politicians and the public. After this hit the Israeli media overnight, members of Netanyahu's right-wing coalition said that they would bring down the government if he agreed to this ceasefire. But we also heard politicians from the left also say that they opposed it. We've also heard from residents who have been displaced from northern Israel since October the 8th when Hezbollah opened fire, and they said that Netanyahu wasn't doing enough, and they are actually, or some of them, many of them are actually in favor of some kind of invasion. So this tough talk from Netanyahu is popular, even if at the same time Netanyahu is very vulnerable, says Natan Sachs of the Brookings Institution.
Netanyahu right now, although he sounds very robust, is a very weak leader. He's very weak vis-a-vis his own coalition. He's also very weak with regard to his own public. There's a very large part of the public that does not believe Netanyahu and is concerned, even when it supports this campaign in the north, is always concerned that Netanyahu has ulterior motives.
And so all eyes are on Netanyahu tomorrow when he'll speak to the UN General Assembly.
What about on the other side of this potential ceasefire proposal? What kind of pressures are the Hezbollah leaders under?
Israel embarrassed the group with its pager attacks and has decimated its military leadership. So Hezbollah feels like it has to respond in order, in part, to try and avoid some kind of invasion by Israeli forces. But it's also under pressure from Lebanese to avoid a war that would destroy much of this, the southern part of the country. That is a war that Iran also wants Hezbollah to avoid, says Faraz Maqsad of the Middle East Institute.
On one hand, it feels there's a need to escalate, if only to establish or re-establish deterrence vis-a-vis Israel. However, it also has to take into consideration the fact that Iran right now, its primary sponsor and backer, is not itching to broaden this war. Iran very much sees Hezbollah as a first line of defense should Israel decide to strike at its nuclear facilities, its nuclear program.
U.S. officials know that every day that passes, there could be an incident that could lead either side to escalate, and so that's why tonight they are continuing to press for this 21-day ceasefire, regardless of what Netanyahu said in public today.
Nick Schifrin, thank you as always for your reporting.
Thank you.
On a crucial visit to Washington today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with President Biden in the Oval Office and then Vice President Kamala Harris for in-person requests for more military and economic aid as part of what he calls a victory plan.
President Biden announced $8 billion in military aid to Ukraine, much of which is for already authorized weapons. But certain key features of the new aid include another Patriot missile defense battery, precision-guided glide bombs with a range of 81 miles, more F-16 pilot training, and American investment to help Ukraine's defense industry. What did not come out of today's meeting? U.S. permission to fire American weapons deep inside Russia.
Today we have a new strong support package, as you said, and we have common view on the things that need to be done. We have to keep pressure on Russia to stop the war and to make truly lasting and just peace.
There are some in my country who would instead force Ukraine to give up large parts of its sovereign territory, who would demand that Ukraine accept neutrality and would require Ukraine to forego security relationships with other nations. These proposals are the same of those of Putin.
Zelensky will meet with former President Trump tomorrow. But far from the political grappling here, there's a battle for air superiority that's crucial along the front lines in eastern Ukraine. Russian glide bombs launched from aircraft lay waste to Ukrainian positions and to the towns nearby. And a harrowing game of cat and mouse is being played with kamikaze drones. Up close, personal, and terrifying.
The drones are mostly consumer drones with deadly explosive accessories. They create havoc and instill terror among the forces along the front lines. Special correspondent Jack Hewson traveled recently to Touretsk to witness this deadly face-off. And a warning, images in this report may disturb some viewers.
We're following a drone unit into the town of Touretsk, 1.2 miles from the Russian line.
You can hear a lot of outgoing fire from this position. Nothing incoming yet, but you can tell from just the uptick in noise of how close we are to the hard front.
Drones have made the front so lethal that we must move by night. Even then, some have thermal cameras that see in the dark. Suddenly we hear a noise that soldiers have come to fear. For a moment we freeze. But we're lucky. These are the Ukrainian team's drones returning home, and we move safely below ground. First-person view drones, or FPVs, now stalk infantry, not just high-value targets. The way war is waged has been transformed. There are so many FPVs in the sky that individual soldiers are now hunted, like these Russian infantrymen caught in open ground. A dystopian video game with real-world kills. At dawn, the unit emerges into the light. We've been taped up green to indicate we're not Russian soldiers.
Right now, these guys are preparing a drone for a mission to target a Russian position. You can see it attaching an explosive charge to the bottom of a Mavic DJI drone, shortly after which they're going to launch it.
Sure. The drone is armed now, and don't worry, it's our artillery you can hear.
This team alone claims to fly more than 50 of these sorties every day. The pilot, callsign Borzi, shows us a clip of his team killing Russian infantry dropping explosives wrapped with shrapnel. Modern warfare as detached and remote as it is brutal.
When you're dropping these on Russians, what do you think?
I'm thinking about how to help my friends, the infantrymen. I'm defending what's mine, my territory, so I don't feel anything at all.
Ukraine's drone teams punch above their weight, but they can't compete with conventional Russian air power, particularly glide bombs. Carrying up to 1.2 tons of explosives and launched from far behind the Russian line, they glide onto their targets, devastating Ukraine's defensive positions and obliterating frontline towns.
The Russians currently have an advantage in the air. They completely destroy the area they want to take over with guided air bombs. We cannot stand against the amount of air power directed at us. We just physically cannot do it.
It's time to go. In Touretsk, it's safer to not stay in one place for too long. The drone team move to a new basement every few days.
Okay, we've got to run for the car.
We have to be quick. In broad daylight and with clear skies, we're visible and exposed. Once a town of 30,000, now a ruin.
Look at the destruction. There's not a lot left in the city.
we're leaving at serious pace because we're still within range of potentially being hit by Russian FPV drones. This vehicle's got jammers, but we're taking no chances. Jammers scramble drone broadcast frequencies, but they change daily. You can still be hit. It's a nerve-shredding gauntlet that soldiers run daily. At a stabilization point 12 miles away, the new arrivals bear the wounds of an army stretched to its limit. Flesh ripped, punctured and torn, Russia's superior numbers, ammunition and air power are taking a withering toll on Ukraine's troops. Every day there are more, says Dennis, a medical group commander with the 5th Assault Brigade.
Most of the wounds are from shrapnel. This is the largest percentage among all injuries. The percentage of bullet wounds is less now because there are fewer such assaults now. And we attack the Russians more with drones than with bullets.
The endless trauma is exhausting, and polls show more Ukrainians are starting to consider the possibility of negotiating peace. But despite all this spilt blood, the majority still want no concessions. They want to fight on. Dennis has no time for those with war fatigue.
Here you can be angry and tired to the bone. You can be exhausted, you can be aggressive. You can hate everything, but not fatigued. You see, when it's a matter of survival, you have no right to allow yourself to get fatigued. We can only allow ourselves that feeling when we're at home and in peace.
Outmanned and outgunned, Toretsk may soon fall, like several other key Donbass towns. But for now, Ukraine battles on, seemingly through bloody-minded determination alone. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jack Hewson in Toretsk, Ukraine.
Who's that?
The enemies here? HQ, please respond.
This is HQ.
Patrol here. We're being attacked. Enemies unknown. Going into high alert.
Acknowledged. Sending reinforcements. Use extra caution.
Who's that? What the?
This is HQ. Acknowledged. Eliminating all enemies.
Snake!
Major.
Snake, are you all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
You're far from okay. Look at your life gauge. You're on your last leg.
No, I can still...
See?
Snake, this is a solo sneaking mission. Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Huh?
It means there's no backup, no cavalry. If you're taken out, nobody is there to take your place. Pull out for now and recuperate.
Find a hiding place and get some rest. Your life gauge will gradually recover with time. But the speed of your life gauge recovery depends on the level of your stamina gauge. So get plenty to eat, then get some rest. You hear me? Do you hear me?
I hear you. I want some more.
This is HQ.
Patrol here. We've lost sight of the intruder, going into high alert.
Acknowledged. The enemy is still nearby. Pursue and engage him. This is HQ.
Patrol here. We've lost sight of the enemy. Commence alert formation.
Acknowledged. The enemy is still nearby. Pursue and engage him.
Somebody there?
Who's that?
Who's that?
This is HQ.
Snake, what happened? Snake! Snake! An historic first for the New York City Mayor's Office. Federal prosecutors filed a 5-count indictment against Mayor Eric Adams, charging him with bribery, conspiracy, and wire fraud over the past decade. Adams is accused of taking illegal gifts and foreign campaign contributions, but says he'll continue to run the city as his lawyers handle the case.
Year after year after year, he kept the public in the dark.
The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York this morning made the case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
He told the public he received no gifts, even though he was secretly being showered with them.
The unsealed indictment says for nearly a decade, Adams sought and accepted improper valuable benefits, such as luxury international travel, including from wealthy foreign business people, and at least one Turkish government official seeking to gain influence over him.
Public office is a privilege. We allege that Mayor Adams abused that privilege and broke the law.
The prosecutor said Adams received more than $100,000 worth of illegal gifts, and that the illegal activity started well before he was elected mayor.
Federal law.
You're so supreme. I give my life, not for honor, but for you. In my time, there'll be no one else. It's the way I fly to you. I'm still in a dream, snake eater. Someday you go through the rain, and someday you'll feed on a tree frog. It's ordeal, the trial to survive. For the day we see new light, I give my life, not for honor, but for you. In my time, there'll be no
And in exchange, he was receiving illegal foreign campaign contributions and then trying to mask that he had both received the gifts and the contributions by using a straw donor scheme, so funneling that money through people who were not actually donating it. In addition to that, he was trading favors once he was in office, allowing some of these people who were seeking influence to then ask for favors from the government. In particular, there was one Turkish official who had, showered the mayor with gifts, but then made very clear that he was looking for help, specifically regarding a high-rise building, a Turkish consulate, a 36-story building that was having some issue with its fire inspection system. They needed to expedite that. They wanted to be able to open the building in time for the visit from the Turkish president, and the mayor both understood it and then didn't help expedite it according to the indictment.
Also, according to the indictment, of exploiting New York City's unusually generous public matching funds program. Tell us more about that.
Well, the Campaign Finance Board offers a very generous matching program. Candidates are eligible for an 8-to-1 match for the first $250 of a campaign contribution from someone who is a resident of the city of New York. And so in order to, pump up what was money that was not coming from New Yorkers, they used the straw donor scheme, according to the indictment, to the tune of $10 million in public funds. And to be clear, Jeff, that is public money. That is money that is paid for by New York City taxpayers. So part of the crime that U.S. Attorney Damian Williams really underscored was this was a violation of the public trust. This is a program that is intended to help people who might not otherwise be able to participate or seek public office to have people. It's not intended to be exploited to the benefit of someone like the way the mayor had done so.
And leading up to this, the city's first deputy mayor, the school's chancellor, the deputy mayor for public safety, the police commissioner all had their homes searched for cell phones seized. What's the connection between all of that and the indictment that was sealed today?
Well, Jeff, that is still a little bit unclear at this point. As you said, it's been a wild September in New York City politics, and particularly surrounding people who are involved with the Adams administration. Just since the first week of September, those investigations have kicked off. And this is after really about a year of investigations into the administration. A lot of things just seem to kick into a higher gear this month. At this point, it's not totally clear what connection those investigations have to this specific indictment. But one of the points that the U.S. Attorney made very clear is this investigation is not over. There is an ongoing investigation, and so there may be more charges, there may be more individuals, and there may be more to the story that we learn in the days ahead.
The mayor is saying he won't step down. He says he's going to stay in office and
After the end of World War II, the world was split into two,
really do
East and West. This marked the beginning of the era called the Cold War.
He's not going anywhere. He was elected by New Yorkers. He plans to serve New Yorkers. And at this point, one of the people who would have the most power to remove him from office observing the situation. She's monitoring the news, but she has not released any sort of statement indicating that she was appalling his resignation or seeking to remove him from office at this point. But up for the election next year, there are already several primary challengers who announced their
Flying over Pakistan, altitude 30,000 feet.
Approaching Soviet airspace.
20 minutes to drop off. Commencing internal depressurization. Equipment check. Arm main parachute.
All right. You ready to go?
Drop zone still showing a high pressure mass. Cav okay.
Good. Got high visibility.
Put out that cigar. Connecting oxygen hose to interior connector. Put on your mask. Does this panty waste know what he's doing?
Approaching release point.
10 minutes to drop off.
Hey, are you deaf?
He said put out the cigar and put on your mask.
Depressurization complete.
Checking oxygen supply.
6 minutes to drop off. Opening rear hatch.
Sunrise.
External temperature minus 46 degrees Celsius. 2 minutes to drop off. Stand up.
You'll be falling at 130 miles per hour. Try not to get frostbite from the wind chill.
1 minute to drop off. Move to the rear.
Activate bailout bottle.
This is one for the history books. The world's first halo jump.
10 seconds to drop off. Stand by. Status okay. All green.
Prepare for drop off. Countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Spread your wings
and fly. God be with you.
Jack, I've got some important news. The head of the CIA has finally given us the green light for the virtuous mission.
Virtual mission?
No, the virtuous mission. The future of our Fox unit depends on it. If it succeeds, we'll be officially organized into a unit.
Virtuous mission? Sounds like some kind of initiation ritual.
You know, don't get cocky. This isn't a training op.
Right. So what exactly is this wonderful mission?
Well, about 2 years ago, a certain Soviet scientist requested asylum in the West through one of our moles. His name is Nikolai Stepanovich Sokolov. He's head of the OKB 754 Design Bureau, one of the Soviets' top-secret weapon research facilities, and the East's foremost expert on weapons development.
Sokolov? Isn't he that famous rocket scientist?
The very same. On April the 12th, 1961, the Soviets achieved the first manned spaceflight in history.
The Earth was blue, but there was no God.
Well spoken. The rocket that carried Yuri Gagarin to orbit was the A-1, known as the Vostok rocket. Sokolov is said to be the man most responsible for the multi-engine cluster used in that rocket. After Gagarin's flight, Sokolov left rocket development to become the head of the newly established Design Bureau.
From a lowly technician to head of a design bureau, that's quite a success story. So why do you want to defect?
It seems he'd become afraid of his own creations.
Afraid?
Call it a crisis of conscience.
And for that, he left his country and his family behind and went over the fence?
Not exactly. One of his conditions was that his family was also to be taken safely to the West. We used a mole to get the family out first and succeeded in sneaking Sokolov over the Berlin Wall shortly afterwards. I was the one who conducted the operation.
The security on the eastern side was still full of holes back then. Then what?
We got Sokolov over in one piece, but the whole ordeal had left him exhausted, and we checked him into a hospital in West Berlin. It took him 2 weeks and more than 600 miles to get from the research facility in the Soviet Union to Berlin. He was in no condition to say anything coherent. And it was only a week later that we had something much bigger on our hands.
The Cuban Missile Crisis.
October the 16th, 1962, President Kennedy received word that the Soviets were in the process of deploying intermediate-range ballistic missiles in Cuba. The president demanded that the Soviets dismantle and remove the missiles. At the same time, he announced a naval blockade to prevent further missile shipments from reaching Cuba. But the Soviets didn't back down, instead placing their armed forces on secondary alert. Soviet transport ships carrying missiles continued on course towards Cuba. US and Soviet forces went on alert for an all-out nuclear war. Frantic negotiations were conducted through the UN's Emergency Security Council and unofficial channels to end the hair-trigger standoff. Finally, on October the 28th, the Soviet Union agreed to remove its missiles from Cuba. And so the world avoided a nuclear holocaust. But in order to get the Soviets to pull their missiles out, we had to make a deal.
You mean the one where the US agreed to remove its IRBMs from Turkey?
No. The Jupiter IRBMs deployed in Turkey were obsolete, and we were going to get rid of them anyway. They had no strategic value whatsoever to either the US or the Russians. The Turkey deal was a ruse, a cover story that was fed to the other intelligence agencies around the world.
So what did the Russians really want?
Sokolov. They wanted us to return Sokolov.
You mean the Soviets pulled out of Cuba just to get their hands on Sokolov?
That's right.
What the hell was he working on?
At the time, we had no idea. We were running out of time. It was either give up Sokolov or risk full-scale nuclear war. In the end, we had no choice. President Kennedy gave in to Khrushchev's demand. The next day, I got Sokolov out of the hospital, handing him over to agents on the eastern side. Sokolov kept on screaming, "Save me," until he disappeared from my sight. Then a month ago, we received some new information from one of our moles.
About Sokolov?
Yes. He was taken back to the research facility and forced to continue working on the weapon in question under KGB supervision. What's more, it's on the verge of completion.
So what kind of weapon is it? Something to do with space rockets?
No, missiles.
Same technology.
I guess you're right. We don't know the details, but it appears to be a new kind of nuclear device. For half a year now, the Soviets have been conducting frequent nuclear tests at Semipalatinsk.
Something to do with the weapon, I assume.
We're talking about a secret weapon so big that Khrushchev was ready to pull out of Cuba to get it back.
Is Sokolov still in the facility?
No. According to our intelligence, he's in Selinoyarsk, a place in the mountains about 3 miles to the west that's known as the Virgin Cliffs.
The Virgin Cliffs. Nice name for a virtuous mission.
They moved him there just recently.
Why?
Apparently, they're conducting a field test of the weapon, but it's our best chance to get him back. This mission would never have been possible if he was still in the research facility. This is our last chance. Sokolov must have known that too when he contacted us. Listen up, Jack. Your mission is to infiltrate Selinoyarsk in the Soviet mountains, ensure the safety of Sokolov, and bring him back to the west. If we don't get Sokolov back before that weapon is complete, we'll be facing a major crisis. The clock is ticking. Once we've confirmed the rescue of Sokolov, stand by at the recovery point. A recovery balloon will be dropped at that point. Helium will be pumped into the balloon to inflate it. The process takes about 20 minutes. Once it's complete, the gunship's arm will latch onto the balloon and pull it up.
The Fulton surface-to-air recovery system. I'm familiar with the theory.
Take it easy. It's been combat-proven.
Do you think Sokolov is up to it?
The shock will be less than during a parachute jump, and the arm can handle up to 500 pounds.
So you're planning on going over the border in a single combat talon?
She's equipped with two 6-barrel 20mm Vulcan cannons, as well as two 40mm machine guns.
Sounds like she could hold her own against a battalion of tanks.
Even with the fuel in the reserve tank, we're facing a 4-hour time limit. If all goes well, it shouldn't take more than a few hours.
Home in time for dinner.
But if anything goes wrong, you'll be eating dinner, breakfast, and all the rest of your meals in the jungle. Do you copy? You're already in enemy territory, and somebody might be listening in. From here on out, we'll be using code names to refer to each other. Your code name for this mission will be Naked Snake. I'll be referring to you as Snake from now on. You're not to mention your real name.
Snake?
What, you don't like snakes?
What do you mean?
Well, you've eaten one before, haven't you?
In survival training.
I'm glad to hear that.
I don't know if I'd ever order one in a restaurant, but...
Be careful, you might not have a choice.
What about you, Major? What should I call you?
Let's see. I'll be Tom. Call me Major Tom. This will be a sneaking mission. You must not be seen by the enemy. You must leave no trace of your presence. Is that clear? This kind of infiltration is the Fox unit's speciality. In other words, weapons and equipment are procured on site. That goes for food as well. You're completely naked, just as your name implies.
Great. Now I see why you asked me if I like snakes. I suppose calling me Snake was your idea of a joke, too.
No. There's a good reason for that. I'll tell you later when the time is right.
Gotcha. Getting back to the subject, how exactly am I supposed to feed myself?
You've been issued a knife and a tranquilizer gun. Use them to hunt for food. You'll also find some medical supplies in your backpack.
Yeah, about the backpack. I lost it in a tree on the way down.
I see. Well, you'd better go back and get it then. You know where it is?
No problem. I can see it from here. It's stuck on a branch.
To climb a tree, stand in front of a tree that's covered in ivy and press the action button. I'll be monitoring your progress over the radio. We can't risk violating Soviet airspace, but I'll be in the gunship. My frequency is 140.85. I'll give you a call if I need to talk to you. If you need to talk to me, use the send function. Okay, Snake, go get your backpack.